Well, it wasn't a park like we've seen at Bacon's Bridge. This was going to have 2 or 3 boat ramps, parking for 250 cars and trailers. There were going to be floating docks. The Ashley River, when we came here, and you remember this, David, growing up, you could ski up and down the Ashley River jet ski. You probably did, oh yeah. And so there were people skiing and having a great time. But this would turn the Ashley River into all of a circus if you put this right downstream from Drayton Hall. We weren't so much opposed to parks, but it was a location of that park right across the river from Drayton Hall. And the people in North Charleston, through a public survey, had said they want access to the Ashley River. So we talked to people in North Charleston and said, nope, we're not going, it's in this going. And George, being an excellent supply man, very organized, mounted a campaign before emails and all that sort of stuff. Mounted a campaign to our members of Drayton Hall and other citizens in the area, and over 200 letters of opposition came into the Corps of Engineers, more than any other issue that had come before the desk of the Corps. And they denied the permit. And had that permit been approved, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be a scenic river. The Ashley River, very likely the Ashley River would not be a scenic river. And so it would have no boatway zones in front of Drayton Hall. There are other things that we probably might put out there. That decision was absolutely critical, and George did that. I was new. I'm a historian. I never got engaged in public debate. I didn't know anything about it. George taught me. So that happened in 1990. There was special area management, and so out of that came the special area management plan for the upper Ashley River. And there was a good bit of opposition to that. Property rights people said, oh no, you can't do this. You're gonna take away our rights and so forth. And we said, well, no, it's actually going to help the river. And if you own property along the river, it can help you. And we videotaped riparian landowners who said, we don't like, we try to fish out here, our children may want to swim, but we have just so much boat traffic out here, and we really need help. And we did one passage, and that managed the size of docks and the placement of docks along the Ashley River. And we deal with that with ASRAC. When permits come for docks, it comes to our attention. Also, a call for no-wake zones, and a call for buffers along the river. Did not establish it, but it called for them. That was in 1990, 1991. But that was a key document, and there was a good bit of opposition to it. But George knew how to do this. I didn't, but I learned from him about what to do. And so in one of the first tests of the special area management plan was a proposal to put in something like 6 docks right opposite the Magnolia. And that went before the court. The owner of Magnolia at the time, Drayton Hall, was completely opposed to the special area management plan. He saw you guys are wasting your time. No support whatsoever. Then lo and behold, docks coming across him, and he across from Magnolia, he says, oh, that's blasphemy. They can't do that. So we go to court, and George and I testified, and we did win that case, and that was decisive in support of the sample. We would have a special area management plan to go by had we lost that. So George was really good with that. The special area management plan also called for no boat wake zones, and we managed that so that no boat wake zones in front of those sites on the National Register of Historic Places. That's along the river. That's Colonial Dorchester, Drayton, Middleton Place, Magnolia, and Drayton. Those 4. And so we got no wake zones. And not only was that important, just this much noise pollution, you going on a tour of Magnolia or Drayton, you can cut all that noise, but also it's important for riverbank protection. And here we see that riverbank, that rock that was put in 1980, but we were losing about a foot a year from riverbank erosion due to speedboat wakes. And George, being methodical, measured that. So he put in a proposal to the Corps of Engineers to put in a rock revetment to protect the archaeological sites that line the river. The Corps of Engineers had never done that before. They had never protected, at least in South Carolina, maybe somewhere else, but they never protected historic sites, archaeological resources. We got that, we won that, so now this riverbank is protected. Those archaeological sites, they go back to the 1700s. Those are there for the future, managing change. Also, there was a threat to develop the land opposite Drayton Hall. That was zoned at 22 units an acre, condos. So you can, and there were no buffers at that time. We had secured a buffer. So you can imagine being at Drayton Hall and looking across the marsh, and there you would see condos. And I put this photograph in here because this is now iconic. That's photoshopped. And that dates from 1994. Photoshopping was brand new. Started in 1989. I've been to Washington, heard about it, and brought it back and said, let's use this new technology. There was one place in Charleston that could Photoshop and could not do color, could only do black and white. So he took black and white negatives, no, not digital, negatives of, this is the high rises, and then superimposed them. So that's the view in 1994, and that's what it could look like if we didn't buy that land. And then to determine how much land we wanted to buy, George, being an Army veteran, we used weather balloons that he got from the U.S. Air Force. So we would go up with weather balloons on a still morning, early in the morning, there was not much breeze, and then we could see, go by the tree line, and then go, well, where are you now, where are you now? And he would go back, and then when we knew we were protected by trees, then we didn't need to buy that land. So the amount of land that we bought, 42 acres total, was determined by those weather balloons that George and I did. And I'd be on the bank, you have walkie-talkies, those cell phones. So I'd be on the bank over here with, where are you now? I'm at, 30 feet, 60 feet, 70 feet, 100 feet, what's your location? Well, we'll go back, so we marked it on the map, and we figured we need to buy that much land in order to protect the viewshed. And now Mount Vernon had done this. Monticello is doing it now, we will have them. And then also the Special Area Management Plan proposed buffers. And so we worked with the city of North Charleston, and we put in 100, we had helped North Charleston to pass 100-foot buffers. You wouldn't know it, but right back there are 200 townhouses. 200 townhouses screened by that buffer. And again, to test the effectiveness of the buffers, we had a truck come in, and we painted a 4x8 sheet of plywood solid red, and then lifted it up. And we want to see when can you see the red plywood, and it was determined, well, that the trees are sufficient screening. And we also work with the developers, and so the lights for the subdivision, well, the townhouses, are blocked by the townhouses themselves. So there's a street light, townhouse, and then the buffer, and then the river. So all these things, just details that you look at and say, what? Nothing happened, but a lot did. A lot goes on there to create that view. And then the Ashley Scenic River, that was proposed in the mid-90s. And one of the reasons why George and I were excited by this organization was that he and I would show up, public meetings, public hearings, and so forth. Sue would be there, and so, well, somebody else was supposed to show up from other organizations. Well, they wouldn't show up. Or so we'd get called, and we would go and say, wait, something's wrong with this picture around here. Why we going, and these other people don't show up. And so we needed help. And so, we launched this process, and George really helped. In fact, he was on, you can see here, this is the recreational use and access. Howard Bridgman, representing Dorchester Boat Club, was on that. Bob Knight was there. Bill Marshall from DNR, and then George Neal had retired by when this was published. And then Jane Hanahan from the Start Charleston Foundation, been our chairman, and then Jack Keeter is former chairman of this organization. But in fact, the state DNR person who was coordinating this had not dealt with the public that much. And there were some state representatives who really were upset by this, thought we was going to begin, but their property rights were going to be damaged and so forth. So thought that we were overstepping our bounds. And she would send out memos or something to people, you know, say, well, come to this, well, come hearing or whatever the issue was, you know, and that we have just a handful of people show up. And you've got to call people, you've got to do this, you know, the personal relationship, David knows as well, how important relationships are. And so George really worked on that. And so we got the right, we got people concerned, and actually, say, our organization, we don't have a budget. I mean, we don't have any political power, you know, so to speak. We can have a persuasion, but we don't make laws. We don't have any rules. We don't have any. We can't pass ordinance and that sort of thing. But we can push, and that was why this whole organization was so important. So George was instrumental in the founding of the Ashland Scenic River Advisory Council. Oops. And then here we are in those early years. Here we met at Drayton Hall, and here you are, Sue. And Phoebus are here, and there's Jack Keeter, who was our chairman, and Howard Bridgman. There I am, and there's George there on the far right, and then that's Emily Pack, who worked with me at Drayton Hall.
You can't see me.
Huh?
You can't see me.
Can't see you?
Yeah, that's me.
That's you. That's you.
Stan and Karen Whitman.
Yeah, Stan and Karen Whitman, yeah. Yeah, that was, that early group. And in fact, you wouldn't think it would be controversial, but I remember our first meeting, we met over at not Rosemark Park, but at Cuthbert Park. And we went there for our first meeting, and a guy walked in the meeting. Of course, we opened to the public. He walked in and looked at George and me and said, "If you come on property, I'm going to put my property, I'm going to shoot you." You know, they were ticked off. You know, they were really. So he was serious too. I said, well, I didn't say come on, but anyway, I said, well, you'll come join us, something. But let's see, we haven't heard from him. Anyway, then Rosebrook Park, the Ashland River, in the Ashland River Management Plan is a call for the park at Bacon's Bridge. There had been a fishing hole for a long, long time. David and Bob, y'all remember, y'all fished there?
I used to swim there.
You used to swim there? Yeah, swim there?
Used to be a rope swing off that.
Yeah. And we have been asking for something to be done for that park, and for the management plan for the Ashland River, we produced a conceptual plan. There at the foot of what's that Rosebrook Park, where that fishing hole was, and swimming hole. We proposed that, and that was just there. We showed future vision, and then let's see what the next slide is. And so we couldn't. Nothing was happening, and I just happened to read in the Somerville Journal Scene a 2-paragraph story that the county council had met and had decided not to purchase that land. It was owned by Charleston Southern University, and they decided not to purchase it, didn't have the money for it. $350,000 to pass on it, owned by Charleston Southern University. I read that, and I said, oh my gosh, I didn't None of us has been consulted, none of us knew anything about it. So I got in the car, George, Neal, Howard, you went with me, didn't you? And Lucy Ann Cathcart and some others. We drove up to St. George's, appeared before county council and said, can you please reconsider the decision about that land? And we said, no, it's too late. We've already made the decision. Can't do anything. And so we talked, and then after we had those parking lot conversations that you know well, David, and they said, well, you come back to see us in 2 weeks here in Somerville. We'll be here, and maybe we can we'll reconsider. So, but it's just a done deal. And so there were some other things going on that other people. Richard Rosebrock was very influential. And so at the next meeting, George had got out the word about the park. And Sue, you may have had a hand in that too.
I think it was a little before my time. That would have been Lucy Ann.
Lucy Ann, and so Howard did, and so, in fact, there's a picture of Howard, and I thought that was Howard's canoe, a kayak.
Well, actually, it was Danny's canoe.
Okay.
But he let me paint on it.
And I remember pulling up in the parking lot of the county services building. And there was a either canoe or kayak on top of a car. I thought, yay! And went inside. There was standing room only. And Coy Johnson, who's a friend of mine, came up. We talked beforehand, and he had the money from the South Carolina Conservation Bank to buy that land. And other people got up and I spoke, and other people spoke. And while Coy made a really good offer, and I knew that I thought it was going to be accepted, I knew we had won the votes at county council when there was a fireman in his station house blues with a 4-year-old holding his daughter's hand, said, I used to go fishing on the Estuary River at this spot, and I want to take my daughter there, why don't you make it happen? The only thing that fireman in his uniform, his daughter needed was a puppy, but that was other than we won. And that became Rosebrock Park, and then out of Rosebrock Park came the Estuary River Park. And there you see Rosebrock Park and how much it's enjoyed by people today. And then what's not seen along the river, this is the portico at Drayton Hall. You're looking down at alley. There was a proposal for a cell phone tower with a blinking red light atop it on the opposite side of the Asher Road on the west side, would have been clearly visible from Drayton Hall. So we applied, we went before the Charleston County Planning Committee and learned about cell phonies, fake cell phones, the towers. And today, opposite Drayton Hall down that way, is this pine tree. It's a cell phone tower described as a pine tree. There it is, so it's in the woods. It's from the True Luck property on the west side of the road, and you can see that just takes away, looks like a tree, looks like a pine tree. So from the view from Drayton Hall, you don't see it at all. Nothing at all happened. And that's, again, thanks to George Neal. And then here, which you don't see upriver, beyond the rock revetment, George used his Army training, and they put in, this is the first project with the National Civilian Community Corps in the early 90s. They put in 9,000 sandbags to protect the riverbank there. So that part of the riverbank is protected as well. This is a greenhouse, a rosary that dates to 1748, one of the oldest in the nation. And you can see how we were losing it. That tree's almost ready to fall in the water. So if we were losing about a foot a year, that would have been gone by now, had not George stepped up. So it's people like George and people like all of you really step up and make a difference. And that's the important thing. You've got to step up and say what you believe in. And that's what George has devoted his life to in Somerville. He's going to be moving to Atlanta to be near to his family. And was hoping to be with us tonight, and he'll be here for the reception. But I wanted just to give you this presentation just to let you know that we would have these views and these experiences had it not been for people like George Neal. So thank you so much, and George is coming, so soon we can give him applause.
That
Anyway,
was amazing.
we can, again, you don't know that. It's all, preservation is often about what you don't see and what you do see, and that's an example of it. The Ashley River is a telling example of conservation for what you don't see. Okay, well, and I guess, let's see, on that